A Woman's Reaction to the Rational Male, Preventive Medicine by Rollo Tomassi. Okay, we're here. Preventative medicine. I've got my book, I've got my cat, I'm ready to go. So, chapter one of this book is going to be called Your Friend Menstruation. And that's an interesting title for the beginning of a book. It's an interesting way to begin a book. And he's talking about ovulatory shift. I think the first thing people need to know about ovulatory shift is that it is not some divine force which like possesses a woman and takes control of her mind and drives her. Like there's that fungus that will infect ants sometimes and basically turn them into zombies. This is not what ovulatory shift does to women. We do not turn into mindless, sex-crazed zombies who go out seeking chats. But we do have a little bit of a push in that direction. And when I say a little bit of a push, it's a whisper in the back of our mind, or at least that's what it's always been for me. It is a very faint suggestion. And so, like, there are some wonderful things that can happen with ovulatory shift. It's so much more easy to get aroused. It's awesome. Like, I always like that time of the month, which might be a little too much information, but you know, it's true. And I think it works that way for a lot of women. Like a lot of women seem to have that kind of reaction. I don't know if all women have that kind of a reaction. I know that being on hormonal birth control can mess around with that, and other factors can be involved. But for me, at least, you know, that was always the easy time of the month. It was like I don't have to think about it. I don't have to make sure that I'm in that frame of mind. It's spontaneous. It's easy, or at least as easy as it gets for a woman. So I always liked that. Um, it doesn't necessarily mean I want to go out and find other men, and that's something that I think a lot of guys think, and it's something that Tomassi himself talks about. Women are not driven to go out and seek out a Chad-like man. I already have a happy relationship with the man I'm with, and he's perfectly satisfactory for any, you know, kind of activity along those lines that we might be doing. I don't go out looking because I'm already found. Um, and a lot of women, they don't go out looking at that time if they've already found something, you know, that's a relationship that's going to be satisfactory. Now, if they haven't found a relationship that's satisfactory, that's when you hear these stories about her going off and banging Chad. And it's not that she's going off and banging Chad all of a sudden. It's more that she's thought about it. She's thought about it beforehand. She's wondered about it beforehand. She's getting that little soft suggestion in the back of her head. It's kind of pushing her in that direction. And suddenly, she just doesn't see why it's so important to say no anymore. And so that can either be the hot guy at work that she's had her eye on for a while, or it can be the hot guy at the foam cannon party that she just met and is like, well, I'm never going to see him again. So, um, it's not as powerful as I think people think it is. It's a suggestion. It's a whisper in the back of your mind. Which, I mean, it's enough to affect behavior. He talks about how women change their behavior at that time of the month. And I've watched some really cool documentaries about how women change their behavior at that time of the month. I need to find them. That interview I did a little while back with Addie Ads, I mentioned those documentaries. I need to go find them. I need to look for them. I think I might have finally found one of them, so I need to go and check into that. But yeah, women change their behavior all sorts of interesting little ways, like just little tweaks here and there. And it's because it's this subconscious whisper at the back of your mind. It's like, well, you know, normally I might not be in the mood to do X, but right now I'm kind of feeling it, so I'll go do X. And X might be something as simple as putting on earrings, or, you know, wearing some other type of ornamentation, or wearing the pretty colorful shirt instead of the usual, you know, I always wear black. And sometimes it's a matter of whether or not it's laundry day, but, you know, it's little details, it's little things, and you know, so it's the way a woman walks. It's all sorts of little changes, and if you're not aware that that time of the month can cause those little changes, they can sneak up on you sometimes. So I think that's a problem that women have, that they should be aware of ovulatory shift because of that. You know, your inhibitions might be somewhat lowered, which isn't a bad thing. It can be really, really great if you're in a committed relationship. It's like, hey, guess what? My inhibitions are naturally being lowered by my hormone fluctuations. I'm going to have fun with this. Time for a party. Or it can be like, hey, I just had a fight with my boyfriend. I really love him, so maybe now is not the best time to go drinking with my friends because I might do something stupid because I'm angry, or hanging out with that one guy who's been kind of circling because I might do something stupid because I'm angry. You get it. Like, just you're susceptible to certain whispers in the back of your mind that you wouldn't otherwise be quite so susceptible to. I've caught a lot of grief in the past from angry women for suggesting that all women have an inner slut, and that all a guy need do is be the right man at the right time to bring this out in them. I mean, you guys know my background, so maybe that predisposes me to agree with him when he says that all women have an inner slut. I think they do. Now, the inner slut might be really slutty, or she might be just slightly wilder than the woman normally would behave, or normally would ever see herself behaving. But I mean, it's there. There's a part of us that is naturally prone to enjoying sex because we're all human beings. And that part might be a little bit more pronounced if we find the right partner. I think a lot of feminists get angry because they interpret that as women just need a man who's going to really come in and dominate them and beat them down and tell them that they should get back in the kitchen and, make them submit to his awesome ruggedness. And it's like, well, that's an over-exaggeration and a caricature, and it's probably not going to reflect reality very well. But we do need a man that we can find hypergamously pleasing, we can find impressive enough. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, yeah, I'd like to do the crazy stuff with you. Yeah, let's do something a little bit weird and kinky. Why not? It's fun. And weird and kinky could be, it's a scale. It's a giant spectrum. There's really weird stuff that a lot of people would never even dream of doing, and then there's, slightly more impulsive things that people wouldn't normally be inclined to do. And all of those things, like if it's something you wouldn't normally do, you're going to feel a little bit slutty for doing it. And I'm trying to think of an example, and it's like all of the examples that come to mind right away are things that you shouldn't talk about on YouTube, because they involve sexual acts. But you get the idea, just little, maybe kissing a guy on a first date. That's it. That's a good one. I would never kiss a guy on a first date. And then you go on a first date with that one guy who's really kind of impressive and really kind of special and really kind of getting your interest and getting your attention. And suddenly it's like, well, maybe I will kiss a guy on the first date. This guy, yeah, I'd kiss him on the first date. Oh, that's so slutty. Well, but you're going to do it. Add alcohol and you've got the chemical formula for sexual urgency, even from the good girl. I think it's fascinating that you mentioned this too, because when I was dancing in the clubs, I never drank alcohol. Now I never drink alcohol anyway. Whoop, cat break. Yeah, I never drank alcohol in the clubs, and I made it a point to never drink alcohol, particularly in the clubs. Like I can drink like a mild alcoholic beverage in the safety of my own home with my husband, whom I trust. In a strip club, when I was like wearing a bikini and a pair of giant high heels, there was no way. It was too dangerous. It was just plain dangerous, and I saw women making stupid decisions because they were drunk, and then I watched all the drama that would ensue from the stupid decisions that these women made because they were drunk, because alcohol will lower your inhibitions. It will make you less likely to stop and think things through and go, maybe this isn't a good idea. When you're drunk, all of a sudden it's like, hey, this is a great idea. At the very beginning of this chapter, he quotes a 2008 study on hormones and brain activity from the Kinsey Institute, basically talking about how women in the proliferative phase, their inhibitions lower in the sight of a masculine face. So if you're a woman and you're in the proliferative phase, so you're at that special time of the month, not your period, where you're going to be more likely to get pregnant, and you see a masculine face, your inhibitions are going to go down just a little bit. It's that whisper in the back of your mind. You're going to be just that little extra bit less cautious, maybe just that little extra bit less likely to tell him that he should put a condom on, that little extra bit less likely to say no when he asks you if you want to go to his apartment for Netflix and chill or whatever. Just that little extra bit lowered inhibitions. And then on top of that, you also have alcohol and you have even lower inhibitions. And that's why he's saying it's the perfect recipe. The perfect chemical formula for sexual urgency. It it makes you much less likely to say no when you normally would, even if you're a good girl, even if you've got good self-control. If you, number one, add alcohol, it's going to dramatically lessen your inhibitions, but you already might be in a place at that point in time where your inhibitions are already a little lower than they might normally be. So that's a thing to take into consideration. It's not like it's going to drive you out of your mind and just make you into this zombie that simply wants sex. It might make your footing a little bit less steady. It may make you just a little bit less inclined to say no because it's a bad idea. And this is the reason that we as a human race continue to exist, because sometimes people don't say no. He talks about beta phase. As I illustrated before, the girl who spontaneously banged the hot guy in the foam cannon party is the same girl who'll say you need to earn her trust because she needs to be comfortable with you before you have sex. I don't know what it is about foam cannon parties. Tomassi mentions them a lot. Some other guys have mentioned them. I've never been to a foam cannon party, but there is a part of me that very much wants to take my husband to a foam cannon party. Like, the wonderful thing about that is I don't need to look for a hot guy. I'll already have the hot guy right there at the foam cannon party. I don't know if those are fun for this sort of activity, but I really want to find out. I really want to find out. Hypergamy wants to have both sides of a woman's sexual strategy equation satisfied by the same man, but rarely is this dualistic satisfaction met in the same individual, and increasingly, more men are becoming aware of this strategy. I think when he writes that, like, it's a little tricky in the wording. I think he means that more men are becoming aware that one man isn't satisfying a woman's desires, and so she's seeking multiple men to do the same job, or to do all the jobs that she wants. I don't know how frequently this is. When he says it's increasing in frequency, I believe him, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's gone up to 100% yet. I mean, obviously it's not at 100% because I found a man who satisfies all those two dualistic needs. I don't know if I ever was interested in money, but then again, like, I look at it and it's like, I met him when I was 23, so I was definitely at the AF side of the AFBB equation. And I married him while I was still in the AF side of the AFBB equation, and it wasn't until I started having children and I was physically very vulnerable and, not necessarily able to take care of things, and I wasn't able to just go to work like I always had and earn the money to pay the bills like I always had before. It was at that point that I realized that I really needed somebody to help me out, and it kind of hit me all of a sudden, like, I need someone to take care of me because I am completely incapable of taking care of, anything more than what I'm taking care of right now, which, it was a lot. It's a lot to take care of a newborn baby. And women do the single mom thing, but it puts them at a significant disadvantage. They still need help. They just have to hire the help. And that's hard. And it is so much easier to have paternal investment from your mate. To know that he's working to ensure that you and your offspring will be okay so that you can focus 100% of your attention on making sure the offspring is as well cared for as possible. That's a realization I didn't make until later. But at that point we had already, we'd already done the old school method, the how did Tomassi talk about it? He calls it old world thinking. We'd already done that. We got married. We made a very public commitment to one another. We moved in together. We were cohabitating. Because we were married, and we determined that we wanted to have offspring together. So we had kind of made this mutually agreed upon commitment that we were going to fill out these old old gender roles, which work really, really well, actually. At that point, it was like, well, at that point, the realization that I was at the beta buck side of the equation, it was shocking to me because I didn't realize that it would be so extreme. I didn't realize I would be so vulnerable. I had known I would be vulnerable, but it was like I'm tough. I can handle this. I was very athletic at the time. I felt like I could fight a wild tiger if I needed to, and then all of a sudden I wasn't able to do any of that. And it hit me in the face very quickly. And the good news is I had already taken care of that part of the equation. um, the thing that I think sometimes when I read things like this is I was able to capitalize on both sides of the equation with one man. So when I tell women, oh, you should simply capitalize on both sides of the equation with a single guy. Get it all in one man. That's your goal. That is the goal. And I think that's the goal almost universally for women. But I think it is also true that many women do not find that goal. And so there's something that I want to be aware of in the future as I'm talking about it, because it's important. Me looking at it and saying, well, just get it all in one man, I don't want to be, Marie Antoinette saying, well, let them eat cake. There are plenty of women who can't get it all in one man, and they become addicted to romance novels. And I don't know what that's like. And I don't think I'm ever going to know what that's like because I already got it. I already did that. And I think there was some part of me that was being smart. Not necessarily even my own intelligence, but the wisdom of my parents, because my mom did she get married at 23? I think she got married at about 23 or something, or maybe she met my father at about 23-ish. She got married at that prime peak phase. And they had a monogamous life. They're very, very monogamous. They're very, very committed to each other. And so I had that template growing up. You want to find a man who's got these qualities. You want to find a man who's going to stay with you. You want to find a man who you can spend the rest of your life with. And then you want to grab onto him as hard as you can and just hold on. And I managed to do that in large part because I had that marital template. Growing up, I got to see them on a day-to-day basis interacting with each other. I got to see what that kind of a relationship looks like, what that level of commitment actually looks like. And so for me, despite the fact that it was very difficult to find someone that I could form that kind of a relationship with, forming that kind of relationship was not the hard part. And for many women out there, that's not the case. And the men who have to deal with those women have to deal with the fact that they are dealing with women who are going to be perpetually unsatisfied or dissatisfied. And that's a huge problem. And it's all good and well for me to say young women need to find a man who's got it all. They need to find the everything man. They can't do it with the nice guy. They can't do it with the bad boy. They have to find the everything man. And I think women aren't necessarily entirely stupid in this regard. They realize they want the everything man, but they can't necessarily find or identify the everything man, which is why so many women go after the bad boy. Or at least young women go after the bad boy. They're looking for the everything man, and they don't know how to find him. And they're being distracted, and they're easily distracted because, why shouldn't you be distracted? Nothing in our society is telling us not to be distracted. Society, in fact, is telling us to be as distractible as we want to be. And so now that I'm here and I've got everything, and I'm completely happy and satisfied, it's very difficult for me to... I have to be careful when I say, just find one guy who's got it all. Because there are many women who are never going to be able to do that. And I don't know what percentage of women are never going to be able to do that. The most secure monogamous attachments women will make are with men they perceive to be 1 to 2 points above what she perceives is her own relative sexual market value. Yeah, I mean... I felt like I won the lottery. I remember, I felt like I won the lottery. And I mean, I think Tomassi himself even talks about it as winning the lottery in this chapter. It felt like I had won Like I had come out triumphant in a pursuit that I hadn't necessarily even believed I would be able to come out even halfway successful in. I was so happy, and I am still so happy. And he's, it's really funny because I was younger, okay? I was 10 years younger. And so I was prettier at that point in time. And people would look at him and be like, how'd you get her? And the really funny thing is, he's really brilliant. He's very, very smart. He's incredibly competent. He was well traveled. He was very experienced. He was incredibly amusing. He had an amazing sense of humor. Like he had a lot going for him when I met him, and he still does. It was definitely 1 to 2 points above where I was standing. Like he definitely had me beat on multiple levels. For a general instance, a hot 22-year-old co-ed will generally be more predisposed to the alpha fuck side of her hypergamous impulses because she has a better capacity to capitalize on it than a 44-year-old divorced mother of two. This is interesting, and I think he's probably very right when he says this. I haven't gotten to that point. I'm not 44 yet. I know some of you guys are commenting that I look old. I'm not quite that old yet. Um, like only about 11 years younger than that. Scary, but I'm still 11 years away, guys. I promise. I don't know what it's like exactly. I do know that I'm very happy that I'm married. I do not think it would be fun to enter the dating market at this phase of my life at all. But I I haven't thought about it really. Like I'm married. I have a consistent ready supply of dating material at hand. And I know they're going to be good dates because the dude is attractive to me. So, I don't have to deal with the dating market, and I don't have to deal with worrying about what my impulses are telling me. My impulses are all pretty well pointing me in the same direction. So, while he writes this and I believe it, I have no personal experience of it, and I'm really, really grateful. Simply because a woman's natural state is hypergamy doesn't mean she is able to optimize it. She may lack opportunity, i.e., no alpha men in the right place or at the right time. She may lack the physical appeal. She may have an internalized beliefs that cause her to be more self-conscious. She may have self-esteem issues, over and underinflated. Or she may simply be acculturated in a society that enforces limits upon her capacity to optimize hypergamy. All of these limiting conditions contend with her innate hypergamous impulse. I mean, I've experienced some of that firsthand. I've been in a place where I wasn't able to find a hypergamously pleasing man, and that was my hometown where I grew up. I was not able in that entire damn town to find a man that I actually wanted to be with. I found men who were attractive, and they kind of had they looked good, but I couldn't form any kind of a really deep bond with them. And so everything was very superficial, and it was like, why would I commit to a guy like this? Why would I stick around? There just wasn't anything there, and so I had to get out of my town, and I realized that very early on, and I kept saying it, and people kept telling me that I was just wrong, or that I wasn't looking hard enough, or that I was being too picky, or any number of things. And the truth was, I just needed to get out of that town. It was too small, it was too limiting. I needed somewhere bigger to cast my net. And so I moved to a city, a relatively large city. And I started looking there. And within a year, I found a hypergamously pleasing male. It was really, really true. Like I wasn't wrong. I wasn't wrong. I just had a bunch of people telling me I was. If I had allowed myself to believe those people, if I had stayed in my hometown, if I hadn't been able to become an exotic dancer, I would still be stuck there. And I would be alone, and I would be dissatisfied. And either I would have had to settle for some guy who was not at all a hypergamously optimal choice, or I don't know. I think I don't know what I would have done. I probably would have just been an old maid. Like, it was so bad. It was just, I mean, I can't see myself staying with any of the men in that town, like, at all, long term. So yeah, these limitations that can be placed upon hypergamy, like, it's a struggle. Like, it's a really intense struggle. Um, and there are a lot of things that can limit a girl's ability to to find that optimal person. Cash in too early and face the nagging doubt that she could have consolidated with a more optimal man's commitment. Cash in too late and live with the consequences of settling for a suboptimal man her looks, personal conditions, and societal influences allowed her to consolidate on. Um, this is very true, and I'm really, really happy I didn't fall for this trap. I was incredibly happy that I met my husband when I was still 23. I had some guy just recently asking me how I felt that I had spent my sexiest years, just wasted them on other men, and now my husband doesn't get to enjoy me in any of that, and how does it feel to screw him over in that way, or some line of bullshit like that, whatever. And I was just kind of like, he did get to have me during my sexiest years. Like, he met me when I was right at the peak of my physical beauty and performance, and you know he got all of that, and I'm very happy with that. Some people say that 23 is too young, and for some women 23 might be too young. If you haven't gotten out there and you haven't met any potential mates, and you haven't weighed your options, and you don't really know what's out there, and you just kind of settle for the first guy you meet, you might later find yourself going, was that a good idea? I don't know. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was. I can't tell. I'm so uncertain. I knew a girl who was like that, and she made a lot of bad decisions. Like, she was super conservative Christian, married a super conservative Christian guy. They had a beautiful little house. I remember looking at it with my husband and being like, gee, it went up for sale. We wanted to buy it. We didn't have the money, and it was really unfortunate, but there you go. They ended up getting it, and it was a lovely little place to live, and they invited us over, and I remember they got married at a really young age, and later on, there were some problems that they had that had nothing to do with their relationship, just life problems that were not good. But then later on, she had an affair with one of her coworkers, and it was one of those deals where she wanted to have sex with him, and she thought if she just had sex with him, she would get it out of her system, which is a really stupid idea, but she did it, even after her friends and, people I knew told her, don't do that, it's a bad idea. She did it anyway. And she thought that would get over the feelings, and it didn't get over the feelings. And then she still had more feelings for him, and she was like, well, does that mean something? And then she did the thing that drives me absolutely nuts when women do it, where she's like, I'm so confused. It's like, oh my God, you made bad choices, and now you're having emotional reactions to those bad decisions. It's not rocket science. You made a bad decision, and now you're poised to make more bad decisions. But I think part of that was the whole, well, this guy that I married, was he the best I could do? Did I make a good decision when I married him? I married him all feeling young. I'm really happy I never had to deal with all that. After meeting 2,500 men and finding them all not what I wanted, finding a man who was what I wanted was a huge relief, and I don't think there's ever going to be one of those moments of, well, could I do better? No, I don't want to have to face another 2,500 men, all of whom are equally unattractive to me, just so that I can maybe find one guy who actually is. This guy is a rare enough find. I'm happy. I don't ever want to go looking again. Too late is terrifying. Alpha Widows is absolutely terrifying to me because I already had a hard enough time finding somebody I was attracted to. The idea of finding someone I was attracted to and then losing that person and then pining after him for the rest of my life is just, it's so believable and it's so terrifying. Hypergamy is far easier to contain the less a woman is able to capitalize on it. The moment I read that, I was like, hey, wait a minute. Like, 2,500 men. I was just talking about it. I had to go looking and scrolling through 2,500 men. I'm really glad that I had the opportunity to do that. I'm really glad I had the opportunity to capitalize on the hypergamous impulse, because otherwise I would be really, really unhappy right now. And I kind of like the fact that I'm happy with my life. And then, after thinking that, immediately after thinking that, I was like, well, I don't think I've ever worn this ring before on these videos. I have eczema in my hands, and so my hands actually get very rashy and irritated. I've been trying to wear it more often because lately the rash has all been on this hand, and so I think I can kind of get away with wearing a ring on this hand for now. So I've been trying it out, and I love this ring. I cried so hard when he gave this ring to me. But yeah, this is a form of mate guarding. This right here. It cuts both ways. He wears one too, so it kind of says that he's not going to be running around and, having sex with every pretty woman that he meets, which, technically he could just ignore the ring, but it is a deterrent. It's a promise not to do that, and it also stops me from running around and having sex with Chad. It binds us together, but it's technically a form of mate guarding. Like, that's really what it is. Does this limit my ability to optimize on my hypergamous impulses? Well, technically it does. If I find a man who's immediately hypergamously interesting to me, I'm not going to pursue him, whether or not I'm wearing the ring, because I might have a giant eczema flare up on my hand at that point in time. It doesn't matter. The promise and the vows, the changing of the name, all of that. It's mate guarding. It's an assertion before the entire village, the entire community, the entire tribe, that I'm not going to be with anybody else. And it was a compromise to my own sexual strategy that I was more than happy to make, because I got him out of the deal, and that was amazing. In theory, no woman who sees you as her perceived alpha and hypergamous best interest will want to cheat on you, so the idea doesn't occur to her. This is very true as well. I don't think about other men. I'm not concerned about other men. I have no sexual interest in other men. Like, I've got what I wanted. I'm done. I left the sexual marketplace. I quit the game. I cashed in my chips. I'm finished. I'm through. I'm over. Even when I was working as a dancer, like after I met my husband, I was continuing to work as a dancer. After we got married, I was continuing to work as a dancer. After our first child was born, I was continuing to work as a dancer. And throughout all of that, I wasn't looking for someone new. I'd go into a strip club, I'd flirt with men, all night. And then at the end of the night, I'd get out of my stripper outfit, I'd put my clothes back on, I'd wash off my makeup if I was wearing makeup that day. As time passed, I wore less and less makeup because I don't feel a need to wear makeup. And then I'd go home, and that was where I wanted to be. And he was the guy I wanted to be with. And mostly I went to the strip club because I really like dancing. I really like dancing. If there was a way to get paid to continue dancing without having to worry about all the sex stuff, I would be very tempted to do it. Now, there was a point at which, because I was an amateur contortionist, I really thought about joining a circus, because it was like I might be able to get into a circus at this point. I'm about to that level. I could put on a performance, and I could probably get hired, and that would be really awesome. Circuses travel, so yeah. That didn't work out so well. Well, maybe in another lifetime. The balance will return eventually, either by men opting out of the traditional measures, or women coming to a generational realization of the predicament unbridled hypergamy and the consequences of the falsehoods femcentrism has brought to their mothers and grandmothers. Between those options, I really hope it's the second one. I really genuinely do. I really, really want women to realize that we need to alter our strategies. We need to change our behavior. And I say this as a stripper, former stripper. So I was out there with the worst of them, getting naked and dancing around in front of crowds of people who were hooting and hollering and throwing dollar bills in my direction. So I mean, I did it, but even I had the common sense to settle down and stay monogamously focused on a single man. Women who think that they can women who think that they can do some of the things they're doing are going to end up unhappy, and maybe it won't be this generation, maybe it won't even be the next generation. It might be. I think I hear sometimes these little whispers that the next generation is just, they're kind of sick of the crap that our generation is throwing around. So maybe, maybe our kids will grow up and see how unhappy we've been and say, you know what, Mom, we get that you were a slut, but we don't want to be one too. And that would be awesome. Like, that would be awesome. Something needs to change. But anyway, that was the first chapter. It's been an interesting chapter. He's hinting at what's going to come further on down in the book, and I'm really, really excited to see what he's going to talk about in this one. So hopefully it's good. And I will talk to you guys next week. I think I might take a break between chapters in some of these chapters just because not everybody is going to be following this book. And it's kind of fun to just kind of switch things up a bit sometimes. So we'll see. Next week might be completely something off topic, and then I'll go back to Rational Male. But if you find me bouncing around a little bit, I think I finally convinced myself that when I start a book, I have the discipline to finish a book. So now it's okay for me to play around a little bit between chapters. So I might do that. But either way, there will be a video next Thursday, and I will talk to you guys later.